Hey everybody, Matt here with Halloween Daily News. I hope you're all doing well today. I'm very excited because just a few days ago I got to catch up with the one and only James Jude Courtney. We talked about how his life has changed and what he's been up to since first playing Michael Myers in Halloween 2018, what it was like for him to put the mask back on for Halloween Kills, and maybe just a little bit about Halloween Ends as well. James also reveals some personal details that I think you're all going to be very interested to learn about. I know I was. So here it is, guys. Part one of my exclusive interview with James Jude Courtney. I hope you enjoy it. James Jude Courtney, thank you very much for talking to me again today. It is great to see you, and I just want to start off asking, how are you, and how have you been? And in the last 12 months or so, it's been a crazy time for everybody. So how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's really great to see you. It's really great to connect again, and especially since you know, we hit it off on the very first introduction, back in 2018. I mean, it's a special, man. So yeah, thanks, man. It's, the pandemic has been tough for everybody, and so for me, it shut down conventions, shut down. We were supposed to shoot Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills was going to come out in October of 2020. Everything got put on hold. But I find, in my career, I've been injured more than a few times, and I have discovered that when I'm injured or I'm incapacitated in some way, the universe is saying, dude, sit down, shut up, and pay attention. So, I've used this opportunity to clean closets, both emotional, spiritual, and
Sure.
I'll go through my house and clean out stuff that I didn't want. And so there's been a real opportunity here to do some soul searching and growing, and also I think what it does, and I hope it does this for everybody, is has made me appreciate the beautiful things I do have in my life. Because, we are, no matter how much we struggle in this country, we are truly, truly blessed to be here to, even at its worst, we have it so much better than other people. And so,
Sure.
Around the world. And so I think, a gratitude attitude through this pandemic, and, the ability to reach out and help other people, to realize that we're all one, as a human race, a human species, that we're one country, that our communities are one community. And so I've seen a lot of giving. I've been a part of a lot of giving, a lot of helping, so it's not been lost. It's not been lost time, not by any means.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. It's definitely and I think that's one of the positives that did come out of everything last year is and in the past 12 months it's still going on. But like you said, a new appreciation for some of the things that I think a lot of us probably have taken for granted for too long.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think because when Ryan Freeman at Trancas and Ryan Turek from Blumhouse called me, and we talked about like, hey, we're thinking of postponing the release of Halloween Kills until 2021. And my first response was, guys, I'm 100% behind it. First of all, we don't want to jeopardize the fans, and we know the fans love there will be so many fans who would love the film.
Sure.
And they'd go, damn the torpedoes, I'm going into the theater. And we just didn't know enough about the virus then. So, as we talked about it, we have such a love affair with the fan base. And so the last thing in the world we want to do is jeopardize the health and well-being of the people we love. And, and then we said, as we looked at it, it's like, so we have to wait a year. I mean, the anticipation will build. We know we made a damn good movie. Just a damn good movie. So it's going to be worth the wait,
Awesome. Yeah. And obviously, a lot of fans disappointed in the delay, but I don't think, I certainly wasn't surprised when the announcement came, and I think a lot of, it's just added to the excitement at this point. I think this year is going to be just a monumental year when it does come out. Before we get more into Halloween, and one thing, I reread our interview. It's been almost exactly 3 years since our first conversation in 2018, and y'all had pretty much just wrapped just a few weeks prior to that, and then your life has really I think, kind of been a roller coaster since then. Um, After 2018, after our interview in October, the next time when we met face to face for the first time was in Pasadena at the 40 Years of Terror convention. And then you spent the next year traveling the world, making convention appearances and meeting fans. And so I definitely want to catch up on some of that. But one thing going back, because we talked about your career and everything, but one thing I didn't ask in our first interview, not related to the Halloween franchise, but the holiday itself, was, did you celebrate Halloween as a kid at all? Were you big into that, or did you celebrate as a kid? The holiday itself, I mean.
Well, yeah, man. Think of the age I grew up in. I was born in 1957. So in the early 1960s,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I lived in a classic suburban neighborhood, and it was a safe neighborhood, and kids
Yeah.
could roam the streets
Right.
safely back then. And so the neighborhood was packed with kids trick or treating, and and so yeah, Halloween was a huge thing for us. And I have a big family. I have 6 brothers, and so
Mm-hmm.
my mom has always been very active with the kids and helping us make costumes. And I mean, we didn't buy them, we made them. She made them. But she made her own dresses, and she made clothes. She's a very talented woman. And
Love that.
so yeah, it was huge. It was a huge thing for us. And I think, as I had shared with you, my dad, we had this classic sort of Saturday night or Friday nights. We used to watch a guy named Goulardi who did horror films, and my dad would say, he was a big dude. He'd sit with his big old arms, around us. We'd sit in front of the
Yeah.
couch, not on the couch, in front of the couch, and watch the classic Universal horror films. And so, yeah, Halloween definitely was, something deeply, ensconced in our family experience.
Awesome. Awesome. And Sue always asks everybody that we interview, what is your favorite, or was your favorite Halloween candy? Do you have a favorite Halloween candy, or just candy in general, I guess, but it all goes back to Halloween.
Yeah, man, gosh, it's been so long, and I've been hitting that a lot. you know,
Yeah.
uh, I'll have to think about that, man. But I remember, I do remember, because we'd all get there, we'd dump out our bags, and
Oh, yeah.
then we'd separate things, and we were
Yep.
only allowed to eat a little bit that night.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had
You
like
couldn't
rations
couldn't
out.
OD on it at that night. Yep.
Yeah, my mom didn't want like wild maniacs running around the house. And
Right.
honestly, when growing up, we weren't allowed to have sugar. We were allowed to have sodas on Sundays. Like after church, my dad would go get a big mound of chipped ham and Swiss cheese and makes these
Oh, wow.
these hot sandwiches, and we got to drink root beer. But the rest of the week, we never drank sodas. We didn't get candy. My mom made pies and cakes, but they were very low sugar. Like,
Oh,
she was
okay.
always really about keeping us healthy and strong. So Halloween was really special, because it was really that and Easter were the only times we got candy, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have to think about my favorite, though, because all of them were so doggone good. I mean,
Yeah, and like you said, I guess when it's such a special occasion anyway, which it was, and still is for many kids. But yeah, I mean, there's so much sugary stuff out there nowadays. But if it's all right, let's go back a little bit to 2018, and we did our interview. Like I said, we saw you at 40 Years of Terror, and we were actually lucky enough to hang out with you a little bit after the convention. And then we went home back here to North Carolina, and you, a few days later, were at the world premiere, the Hollywood premiere of Halloween 2018. And I'm at home, I'm watching you and Nick, I'm watching you guys be interviewed, and like, this is amazing. So can you, I know you talked about it before with other people, but can you, for our audience, just kind of give me a little bit of what you were feeling that night and what it was like for you to, because if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time you had seen the finished film, was at the premiere. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, first of all, I don't particularly care to watch my work. It's not why I do it. I'm a very in the moment person anyhow. I don't really think about the future a whole lot, except as I need to plan. And, of course, like anybody does, but, and I don't dwell on the past a whole lot. So, for me, it's very experiential. So, for instance, even making the film, I wouldn't go look at the monitors while I was working unless David Green called me over and Jimmy, come here, look at this. What do you think? Or like, I want you to see this, or, so then I can shut off the creative process in one part of my being and open it up on another more critical, analytical point, look at it from a critical point of view, then, okay, this is what we need to do. Boom. So, getting there for the, walking the red carpet, with Nick, and especially with Nick. Nick and I we immediately had a great friendship. I mean, it's like we're mothers from another brother. Awesome. And it's funny because he gave me this T-shirt in Charleston, Nick and Jim's barbecue, right? So he gives me this T-shirt, and it's like the Nick and Jim show. It's like
that's perfect.
So he and I were just riffing off each other and just having a blast, just like walking down the carpet, interview after interview after interview. It was so much fun, and we were just having the time of our lives. My date, beautiful young lady, was stuck in an airport in Bangkok. She couldn't make it.
Oh no!
So I ended up, and she was trying to, but it was a big storm, and the planes were grounded, and so she couldn't make it into LAX in time. And so I ended up, sitting alone, which was really kind of better, because here's the deal. Like when I work, when I'm in front of a camera, whether it's a stunt, whether it's acting, and for this was acting and stunts and a very, very deep role.
Yeah. Seriously,
I have zero stress and anxiety. If I could live in that place that I'm in, for instance, when I was playing, Michael Myers, when I'm playing The Shape and on Halloween and Halloween Kills, if I could exist in that place, the Dalai Lama would be calling me up for advice, man, because I'm in such a state of grace and peace. But when I have to sit in a theater and watch myself, dude, I'm sweating bullets. Like, really? I'm just covered in sweat. I mean, I'm just like, oh, I don't, because then I get really analytical and I start like,
sure.
And so it's not a flowing experience for me. Now, if I had to sit, when I have, for instance, for Halloween Kills, sat, in with the editor, Tim Alverson and David Green, and watched, and talked about scenes and stuff. I mean, then I go to my critical point, my analytical mind, and then that's another creative aspect. So that's easy. I can get outside of myself. But sitting and watching the film, I mean, on one hand, it was beautiful because, it was exciting, and I love the film, and I loved everything that everybody did. And I was even more greatly pleased than I even thought I would be. I mean, just because, I knew what I was in for. I know how talented everybody was because I worked with them. But then you don't know until the end, because I knew Tim Alverson because I'd seen some things cut together, but I didn't know just how talented that guy is. I mean, and he starts editing from day one, and his rough cuts are almost the final cut. Wow. I mean, the dude he's such a brilliant editor. And in fact, I'm trying to produce, I was in conversations with a European company to produce a film that I've written, which we've stepped back from because of COVID, especially because my film has tons and tons of extras. And I talked to Tim recently, and I was like, hey man, so are you available to edit? He goes, well, he's locked into a contract with Blumhouse, man. Those guys locked him up. They know how good he is. So that experience for me was, it was so unique and beautiful, and to be around, my Halloween family, and to see the audience response, because, part of what I did was watch the audience. Sure. And to see their response was just amazing, man. Just amazing. I felt like the luckiest guy in the world.
Awesome. And I was going to ask also with the 2018 film, do you have a favorite scene from that film, either for whatever reason, for how it turned out from the outside, or just from performance aspect, or from the making of it? Do you have a favorite scene? Just curious.
I do, there's certain things that were especially fun to shoot. The bathroom scene, that was just so much fun to shoot. That was just, and especially because, there were stunt doubles, and then, Rhiannon and Bob were and especially Bob was not so keen on doing it, but then, you know, once we started into rehearsal, he was like, "Nah, dude, I'm going for this." And so it was brutal
Yeah.
and a long, tough day. Um, and that's part of it, is like when you really work hard, like the long tracking shot, you know, with the steady
Oh yeah.
cam. I mean,
Love
we
that.
rehearsed that an entire day, and then it took us 9 takes to get it. Um, and you know, David had told me, you know, they didn't expect to be able to get it. They thought they were going to have to stitch it together with CGI. But when we nailed it, when we freaking nailed it, and Stewie, the Steadicam operator, you know, he played college soccer, so and this is all about athletic timing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
certainly musical timing and creative timing, but it's an athletic event because, you know, we're moving on really, really critical pacing, really critical marks that you can't put down. So when we got adjustments, like, okay, we need you 3 inches over when you get down to the sidewalk, and then we need you to do, you know, we had to make those adjustments without any kind of reference, you know, just our physical communication without words. So when we nailed it, when, you know, when we nailed it, David came running across the, you know, the set and gave me a big bear hug, and he goes, "Dude, we nailed it, we nailed it." It's like, so, I mean, I think if I think about it, there are going to be moments, you know, moment upon moment of those kinds of experiences, you know, from Halloween 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, and that tracking shot, of course, is definitely a fan favorite and one of the most memorable shots of the whole film. And so it definitely paid off all the hard work, because I know something like that wouldn't be easy. And they could have stitched it together, and most audiences would never know. But the fact that it was actually pulled off, like you said, and yeah, it definitely paid off, because that's one of the most memorable scenes and one of the most tense moments of the film as well, I think. The film, you know, thematically, and you mentioned a little bit about synchronicity when we talked 3 years ago about how things in your life and your career had brought you to this moment, and everything had happened for a reason, and other parts you had played and things you had studied in your life, and it all kind of um synchronized up with Halloween 2018. And I just want to talk a little bit more about the synchronicity of how, you know, 2018, I felt like it was a very, you know, because when we did our prior interview, of course, I hadn't seen the film. You hadn't seen the film yet, but now I've watched it numerous times, numerous times, probably more times than you have now. But you know, it's a very female, powerful film. You know, it's got three strong, strode women. And again, spoiler alert if nobody's seen it. You know, might as well turn off the interview now, because we can talk about spoilers for that film, I think, now. But with you know, everything going on in the world in 2018, as it turned out, going into 2019, and even prior to 2020, just the female empowerment of the film. Can you talk just a little bit about that, and how? I mean, obviously, it couldn't have been but so planned, but it was kind of a synchronicity thing. I feel like. What do you feel about that?
Oh, absolutely. I think part of it is, you know, when you have people who, you know, like Danny McBride and David Green and
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Bradley, who are comic writers, as well as, you know, and produce comedy, as well as, you know, straight drama. Comedians, I think, more than any other artist, have to be really have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because comedy, to me, is, you know, really steeped in irony, and so they don't need to make stuff up. They can just look at the way the world is and assess it for what it is, and then find humor in it. Well, you know, that same gift, I think, is the gift that they used when they were writing Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, where they tap into the, you know, the current flow of social awareness and social, you know, the arc of you know, change in society. So I think it was absolutely, well, both prescient and a very natural, you know, reaction to the shifts and changes we're going through in society with #MeToo and female empowerment.
Yes.
Looking at addiction as, you know, and understanding what the trauma that causes addiction. I mean, these are things that,
Sure.
you know, we really need to address as a society. And so, and so I think there was absolutely zero mistake in that. There was nothing accidental about that. I
Yeah.
mean, that was very, very much. And Jamie's been sober for 20 years, and that's it's so she also being a wonderfully empowered female, it's just such a natural that she would, she in concert with David and Danny and Jeff and everybody else, that the entire project would be would revolve around those issues, because there's such important issues right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you just made that I didn't even really think about. But yeah, coming from the world of comedy, you're right. That's exactly what comedians do and comedy writers do, is they hold up a mirror to society. And I think some of the best horror films in history, and certainly some of John Carpenter's best films himself, have done that as well, held a mirror up to society.
Oh
And I think
yeah.
especially when it comes to slashers, a lot of them, it's kind of got a reputation, and rightfully so in many cases, of kind of victimizing the female characters. But in some of the key landmark films of the genre, it's really has been an empowerment thing. And I think but I think you're absolutely right, the way talking about how they incorporated the Me Too movement without directly incorporating it, but holding a mirror up to society in that same way. And again, I mean, I've not, of course, seen Halloween Kills, but I've seen the teasers they've released and so forth, and what little bit we know. And it seems that there's going to be some synchronicity there. David Gordon Green has gone on record in some interviews and said that film is about community fear and fear gone viral in a sense. And what I'm reading into that is that it's Haddonfield, the community of Haddonfield, reacting to Michael Myers' return 40 years later. And I think that it was filmed in late 2019. You guys filmed Halloween Kills, and then 2020 happened with not just with the pandemic, but with all the protests worldwide and everything there. And then of course January 6th of this year, again, things that they couldn't have predicted, but I think it goes back to that synchronicity in a lot of ways. Just again, not having seen the film, but just knowing what we know so far about it, and taking those quotes from David himself, it seems like it's going to play on some very timely themes as well.
It is, absolutely. And I think David can say those things without giving anything away. Jamie had said, and I sort of follow their lead, in terms of what I can and can't say,
Sure.
Or what I'm willing to say. But Jamie refers to the stark view of what mob mentality looks like, and
Yes.
so so there's a stark difference between peaceful protest and mob mentality. And
Yes.
so we get to examine once again through the lens of these very talented people who have an incredibly balanced vision. It's not an agenda driven vision. It's just a vision of what they see and what is, and then they comment on it. And they're the same thing that a comedian does. And so I think Halloween Kills, there are more than a few people who are deeply involved in this film who say that Halloween Kills is even better than 2018.
Wow.
So I mean, but in a way, you think about it, that almost had to happen, because we've got the same cast back, the same crew back, the same writers, the same directors, the same the same Blumhouse team, the same everybody. So we were such a well-oiled machine for Halloween Kills. Pardon me. We knew. I mean, we already knew everybody's rhythms, and I mean, we gelled beautifully in 2018. But for Halloween Kills, wow, man, it was just
it was just getting back into what. So was it difficult at all for you to get back into character, back into the shape, or did it just come naturally at that point? Like you said, it was a well-oiled machine, and you just slip the mask back on, and you're back.
Well, you know, with the mask or without the mask, I mean, it's a space that
Yeah,
was created. You know what I mean? And
that's
I
true. Yeah.
spend a little more time in this one without the mask on. And uh, you know, once I found that space, which was very early on before I ever shot 2018, it's the exact same space I go to, which is why, you know, like in interviews and podcasts and, you know, whatever, people will ask about motivations or want me to intellectualize this character. I won't do it because
Yeah.
it's a space, it's a place I go to, and I want to be in that same exact vibrational position, you know, in that same place, in that same space, when I show up for the first day in Chris Nelson's trailer and start putting on, you know, start my hour-and-a-half process of putting on makeup and, you know, prosthetics. And so I, you know, I leave that to the fans. Like, you can, you know, the fans can argue and debate and conjecture as to what the motivations are and, you know, what caused this and why that. And, you know, that's great. That's awesome. I mean, it's fun. I'm staying out of it. You know,
Yeah.
maybe someday, 10 years from now, I'll have a comment on that. But,
Yeah.
you know, for right now, so, you know, showing up for kills, I showed up, man, and got to work. You know, I just showed up and got to work, and everybody else was, you know, I mean, again, everybody knew everybody, with a few exceptions. With people that just couldn't make it because they were committed to other shows. There were even people who showed up, you know, in the crew who could only be there a week or two until they had to go to another show, but they showed up because they just had to be a part of it, you know. So it was, yeah, and I anticipate the exact same thing when we shoot ends at the end of this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be, you know, just this. I kind of feel like I'm a believer in reincarnation. So I kind of feel like we travel in packs anyhow. We travel in communities. And it feels very clear to me that this Halloween cast and crew, we've done something together before. We were a community together, or we were a band of pirates, or, you know, who knows what we were, but there's this cohesiveness and this warmth and this knowing of each other that we had right from the very beginning, and it's only gotten better.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And I love hearing that. I mean, having interviewed you and Christopher Nelson and Nick Castle, and I mean, hearing all of you guys echo that then 3 years ago, and to say that that was still the case, and even more so for Kills, certainly as a fan, it gets me even more excited, and I think that's what everybody wants to hear. As far as the fandom, of course, and yeah, we're all looking forward to this one. I feel like, you know, David has said it's his his quote was, "It's our Empire Strikes Back," which, I mean, that's all he's got to say for me. I mean, that's you know, I was sold anyway, but when he said that, I'm like, okay, I don't need to see any teasers or trailers. I'm there. I'm sold. That's, you know, so let's again, in 2018, prior to filming Kills, you spent, starting with 40 Years of Terror, which I if I'm not mistaken, that was your very first convention appearance, I think, right?
Yes, it was.
And since then, I mean, we saw you a few months later at Mad Monster Party in Charlotte, and but you've been all over prior to filming Kills, and which was fall of 2019. And so, what has that been like for you? I mean, that obviously, and we talked about it briefly in our 2018 interview. You said that you were excited to start doing conventions and to be traveling around and meeting the fans. And so now that you've done that for a while anyway, you know, pre 2020 at least, what's been the most surprising thing about that part of this experience for you?
You know, first I have to say I love it, and the fact that we didn't get to do it in all of 2020, and you know, probably the first half of 2021, it looks like, at least, maybe all of 2021. I really miss it, because one of the things that struck me in this incredibly polarized time we live in, politically at least,
Hmm.
is, you know, horror conventions, especially, more so than Comic Cons, but like horror conventions, or you go to haunts, you have people from the most diverse backgrounds, every socioeconomic level, every sexual orientation, every race, every religion. You got, I mean, totally tatted out bikers and cops and firefighters and lawyers and oncologists and I mean, just every imaginable person. If you were to stereotype different types of people in our society, if you had to have representatives of every sort of group and subculture in our society, and everybody gets along. Everybody gets along. I have not met one douchebag at a horror con. The people I met are just beautiful. They're courteous. They're happy to be there. Everybody is just flowing. And I'm like, and I've said this a few times, is like, if the world operated the way a horror con does, we wouldn't need a military. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just the
Yeah.
nicest people in the world. And so, so for me, when I'm there and, people are coming up to the table and taking a selfie and, grabbing an autograph, and I
Mhm.
get to have these moments of interaction. These just, it's just brief, but it's little drops of love. It's a mutual passion. It's a mutual appreciation. And, and, and so I get to look in the eyes of these really beautiful people and feel loved and give love. And, so I walk away from those. I mean, it's exhausting after a weekend of a con,
Sure.
it's, I also walk away really, really like inspired and happy. And and I miss that. I really miss that. I
Yeah.
can't wait to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, having well, been to those two cons where you were at, and we actually got to have a table next to yours at Mad Monster, so I got to see you interacting with some of the fans, and yes, I can vouch for you do give the fans these moments, and because we haven't been to a ton of conventions, but we've been to quite a few over the years, and we've seen all types of guests, and everybody's different. But you actually, from what I saw, and can say from my personal experience, you were giving the fans these moments, and of course there's a line and there's only so much time, but you made every fan. I feel like feel connected, and that you were engaged with them, and that's it's one of the special things that you do get at the best of conventions with the best of guests. And I think you're right. That's something that there's really just no substitute for in person. I mean, I love, the technology and the things like this are available, but that personal interaction at and you really can't get it anywhere else right now. Um and so I'm looking forward to when conventions are back too, and we can do it again.
Yeah. I think because we've all missed it,
Yeah.
I
It's going to
think,
be.
I hope that as they open up, first and foremost for the fans, and certainly for myself, because it's such a beautiful part of my life to interact personally with, with the Halloween fans and horror fans. I also am really hoping that the promoters, there have been probably a few that will fall through the cracks. I'm hoping that most of them can hang on, because it's a tough
Yeah.
business. I mean, it's not like those promoters make a ton of money. They're doing it
Sure.
out
Yeah.
of passion and love. I mean,
That's
they're,
true.
and it's a lot of work, and and so pulling that, year and a half away from a lot of these promoters. So, I would encourage people when the cons come, and if you have a question, think about supporting the horror community, because there's a whole lot of people who make their livings, and not amazing livings. They just make their livings off their passion.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have taken a hit during this pandemic. And so I would encourage people, when when the haunts open up and the cons open up, patronizing, man, like, because we're all in this community together.
Yeah.
So let's see what we can't do to like lift everybody back up and get things rolling again as we can.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. Like you said, a lot of they're going to need our support. And I feel like hopefully there will be that swing back when things are safe, that people are gonna. We've missed it so much that it will be like a rebirth almost of the whole convention scene, because everybody will be so excited to be able to be around each other again, and feel safe and good about it. Do you have? I know you've met so many fans, and probably some you can't even talk about. But are there any like special or unexpected fan encounters, especially memorable, I guess, that that you could tell us about?
Well, you know what surprised me is there are people who have been through really, really difficult times, even traumatic experiences, and for whom watching Halloween 2018 helped them through those tough times. And I never really much thought about that. I mean, you know, we've talked about the you know, how I believe that horror fans subconsciously work out the need for violence and anger and aggravate, you know, aggressive behavior. And, you know, there's something to why horror fans are generally kinder, more compassionate, more peaceful people. And so but it did surprise me that, you know, in the course of this and meeting people, how many people in watching Halloween 2018 were permitted to step away from whatever trauma or, you know, stress and anxiety they were feeling about things that were going on in their lives, and were healed by watching this film. And it's, you know, it's I'm not going to say it's ubiquitous, but it's, I mean, there were quite a few experiences that relayed to me, and I never would have thought that. But then it goes to show that, you know, it made me feel good to be a small part of, you know, this project that has brought not only joy to people, but has brought healing to people. You know, that's pretty doggone cool, man.
Yeah, that is amazing, and that is great. And something that I don't think a lot of people think about or consider when they you know say, oh, it's Michael Myers movie, it's another. But yeah, I mean, very powerful, and again, through the conventions and through meeting fans, that you can actually, you know, for a fact that that's happening because these people are telling you, you're not just reading about or hearing us. This is their personal experiences, their life that they're telling you about. So, and that is, you know, because it is a powerful film, especially as it relates to Laurie's trauma and as you said, her addiction and just everything going on. And it doesn't beat you over the head with it. It's not like a, you know, making any grand statements, but it's there and it's so effective. And some of those scenes are so powerful that Jamie Lee does.
Oh yeah, well, I have to tell you that, you know, David and I have talked about this. David Green is not only empathic, he's an empath. So, you know, if you feel it, he's feeling it. You know what I mean? So his compassion and empathy is boundless. I mean, he's a remarkable human being, And, you know, it all starts at the top. I mean, when you do a film like that, it starts at the top. It starts with David Gordon Green. And because David Gordon Green is has such high integrity, and he's such a deep spirit, and he has such compassion and empathy, that it permeates the entire film, and it will permeate Halloween Kills, and it'll permeate Halloween Ends when, you know, when that's done and released as well.
I'm so glad that they do have the same team doing all of these. I think that's going to make all the difference in the world in the long run. One more thing on 2018. And I know you've I think talked about it in some other interviews, but again, maybe just for our audience, one of the key scenes, and we talked about it in our interview, that is the scene or scenes that you and Nick shared. And can you walk me through a little bit, because you had told me originally that you guys you know, you worked together on the scenes, and you're both there, and that Nick had said to you at that time when you guys were on set that this was basically the passing of the torch. Can you walk me through a little bit of that?
Yeah, it was actually one scene.
Nick okay, it was the one scene. Okay,
just the one scene. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because people still ask me, just because of the whole, you know, misinformation that was put out before, and that was just all marketing, and, you know, but some people are still very unclear as to you know, which scene Nick was in or scenes, and, you know, which ones I did. And I was in every single scene.
Okay.
The one scene that Nick inhabits is the scene that I inhabit as well. And
Hmm.
when we met, we were hoping that we would get to inhabit the same scene, because that way there would be that, you know, as Nick turned at the passing of the torch.
Yes.
So that scene is when Laurie Strode drives up and she looks up in the window and sees the shape standing there, right?
Yep.
That's Nick standing there.
Okay.
But when she shoots and the mirror shatters, that's me. For probably a couple of reasons. One, that mask is made to my face,
Hmm.
so you really can't get close on anybody putting that mask on, because the mask will shift in shape.
Hmm.
I mean, it doesn't look the same. The second point to that is Heath Hood, very, very, very talented special effects person. When we shot the mirror out, he was about a foot behind me and shot the projectile about 6-8 inches away from my head. So, you know, that's but I trust Heath. He's incredibly talented. It's what he does.
Hmm.
I'm an actor, but I'm a stuntman, so being in that position is really easy for me. That's a no sweat situation for me. It's not what Nick does. You
Yeah.
know, they would never put Nick in that situation. Nick wouldn't want to be in that
Yeah.
situation. But you know, Nick and I got exactly what we wanted. We wanted to inhabit the same scene, and so, you know, and it worked out perfectly, man. And that's you know, I really wanted that homage to Nick. I wanted to make sure that, you know, that he was
Yeah.
that he was in there and got that credit. And, you know, and it's just so, I mean, we just had so much fun. We just had so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It sounds like it. It sounds like it, and that's a great scene too. I mean, you know, and I love that it's him, and then after the shot, that it's you, because it's literally like the before and after kind of, you know, and Lori being involved in that too. It's just kind of having Jamie Lee and Nick interacting. I think it's definitely a nice treat for the fans to have the original shape in there and the new shape, and like you said, cohabitating this scene. You don't want to miss part 2 of our interview. That'll be dropping next week right here on the Halloween Daily News YouTube channel, as well as at HalloweenDailyNews.com. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and turn on those notifications so you don't miss it. Until then, I'm Matt Arts for Halloween Daily News. Thank you for watching.